All right, everybody. So welcome to another webinar as part of the marketing series that Pearl Capital is funding for ISOs. And as I mentioned in every one of these webinars, I'm incredibly proud of what the team there at Pearl is doing, because not every company does this for their audience, right? For their vendors and their distributed partners and so forth like this. And there's a recognition that, look, one of the challenges that ISOs have is marketing. It is, how do I go about bringing in high quality leads for my business so that I can bring in more deals, and some of those deals obviously will get funded through Pearl. And so this is a rising tide lifts all ships type of a scenario here. So I'm really proud of them for doing this. The work that we have been doing together looks fantastic. There's a huge resource that they've set up that's available to you. So this this webinar and others are there as a resource on the Pearl Capital website. You'll also find some articles that I've written, some of the articles that other people have written, lots of really good stuff there. So please do visit the site and get your fill, and revisit some of the stuff too. I find that very often if I read something or listen to something that I may have seen a year or two ago, what have you, and I revisit it again, new nuggets come out, right? Something that's a little more applicable to me today than I wasn't aware of before. Today's webinar is social media ads for ISOs, how to craft an effective social media ad campaign for your business. This is a challenge. I have, and many of you that are on this call may have spoken to me over the last month or so. I've spoken to, I think, about 50 ISOs on the phone, and doing research on what's working, what's not working, where are the challenges on marketing. And so I've got just an insane amount of good information that I've gleaned that I think will help, me and on my business side and everything. But advertising on social media is one thing that's come up a lot. That a lot of ISOs have tried it, have had some mild success or no success at all. Really feel it. They know they should be doing it, just not 100% sure how to get their arms around it, and so forth. So I hope we cover some of that territory for you today. If you have questions for me, as always, do reach out. By way of introduction here, my name is Mike Langford. I should have said that a little earlier here. I've been in the financial services industry now for 23 years, almost going to be 24 very soon, because I started my senior year of college answering phones for mutual fund companies, which is a blast. Anyways, so my business is finservMarketing. It's a marketing firm. We focus exclusively on financial services, and Pearl Capital being a client, and we're talking to some other ISO firms that need some help. It's part of the reason why I've reached out to. We've had a lot of conversations with those 50 or so ISOs just to see what's working, what's not working. So we may have some offerings for you that'll help you in the future. If you want to reach out to me, please do. I'm pretty much at Mike Langford everywhere. You can go to the website, fill out something if you have a question, or hit me up on Twitter or anywhere else. Just look for Mike Langford. You'll find me. I'm usually on page 1. Pearl Capital also very active on social. Grant Pastor, our man, it says we're using his account here for the broadcast, but it is me doing the speaking. But Grant is behind the scenes. He's the man who makes everything happen there on social at Pearl. He also manages a lot of the interactions you might have as an ISO when it comes to the newsletter and the like. We've had a separate hashtag for each one of these webinars. If you choose to share it with your community and let people know what you're learning and some of the things that are interesting, you can go ahead and use Pearl social ads for this one. But if you do mention Pearl Capital on Twitter, if you're out there, you will get responses. Grant's really good at that. Okay, so I've got a couple of goals. Usually I don't have this at the beginning, but I think there are 3 goals for social ads, and I think this really helps. Because very often when we think about marketing campaigns, I think our brains get a little crazy, right? We get excited, sometimes a little nervous. We want things to work. We don't want to waste money. All those good things that are wonderful things that happen in our brain, right? But there are 3 real goals, I think, for anything that we're doing in business here when it comes to marketing. One is we want to drive prospects deeper into your marketing funnel. And I think that's a really, really important nuance there, because what I often see when I see ads on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, you name it, is a buy now, right? Buy now, do business with me now, click here and you'll get the deal of your lifetime type of concept. And that works for consumer products, right? Sometimes. but it doesn't often work for financial transactions, right? So you're dealing with business owners that are looking to get financing for their business. The buy now concept, it's not clean, right? You know way better than I do how much effort and activity goes into getting a lead, working with a merchant, walking them through the process, and getting them funded. It's arduous, right? Ideally, it would be quick and easy, and some deals are easier than others. But in my mind, the conversion goal that you really should be looking for when it comes to using social media marketing is to get somebody further down the marketing funnel. And we'll talk about that near the end of the presentation, like what some of the funnel elements should look like for you. But that's what you're looking to do. You're looking for the person to click on your ad and hopefully move a little further down and take the next step. And whatever that next step is, that's what you want them to do. Take a next step in the process. The other two goals, right? One is building your audience, and you likely have an audience right now. You may have bought a list, maybe you have some subscribers on an email list and so forth, but you want to build your audience, you want to grow it, and ideally you want to do it in a targeted way. One of our first webinars we did earlier this year was on your target market. And I believe in that, like I believe in oxygen is necessary for my living. You need to have a target market, and social media, social sites do allow you to accumulate an audience of people in your target market better than any other platform on the internet. And I highly recommend you make that one of your goals. So when you're thinking about advertising, you think about promoting your business, putting campaigns out there, one of the goals should be accumulating followers, accumulating page likes, right? But not just any old followers and page likes, people who are relevant for your business, right? And then lastly, growing awareness and engagement. What do people know about your business? Do they recognize your brand, right? We had a webinar on branding. Do they recognize your name, right? Are you top of mind when it comes time to do business, right? That's what we want to happen for you and your business. That when a merchant needs capital, they immediately think of you. Why? Because they see you all the time in their stream, that they're interacting with you all the time. Now's the time to pull the trigger because now I need capital, right? So they're gonna go with you then. Okay. Eyeballs and eardrums, right? Gonna be all up in your eyeballs, as they say. Your ad is worthless unless the right audience can see or hear you. And it's so true. We've all been there where you're kind of amazed, like, why am I seeing this ad on TV? It has nothing to do with me. Or the big question I get a lot from ISOs and from other financial professionals that we work with in different communities is, how do I get in front of my audience? How do I get this in front of high net worth individuals or merchants who own this type of business? We got to be where they're at. It sounds so silly, right? But that's what advertising is all about: being where somebody is looking, being where the person is hearing. And here's the deal: 20% of all internet time, and I think this is low. I think this is actually kind of hilariously low. But 20% of all time spent on the internet is on social media. It's not just Facebook. Facebook's the one you see here, but I think that's low. I really do. I think of all the time that you spend looking at your phone, all the time you spend looking at your computer. While you're at work, it may be looking at your lead list. It may be looking at some other, your CRM or what have you. But I think in terms of the average human being, at least 20%, if not more, right? They are spending time staring at social media sites. And if we know that's where people are spending a lot of their time, then we need to be there, right? It's not hard, right? It's not hard to figure out, this is a place that's important for me, right? So the question I get, and actually, believe it or not, this question right here is how we ended up working with Pearl Capital. Is, many ISOs were spending a lot of money in the early days on Google ads, and Google ads were crushing it. They were working great, they were converting well, and they were cheap. And so many brokers and ISOs were able to just go out there and just slay it on Google. Then, of course, Google prices started going up because it started getting more competitive. And as we talk about, in terms of the ISO universe, because there's such a low barrier to entry that you don't need a license, that frankly, my common joke is anybody who can fog a mirror can become an ISO. Well, if that's true, you're going to get a lot of people pouring money in there, spending money stupidly, bidding on the same keywords, and the price goes up. Right? So how do we avoid spending too much money and wasting all that money, right? Google ads aren't useless. They're very valuable, and you should use them strategically. You know, as I mentioned here on the slide, the thing about Google ads is they're presented to an audience based on an expressed or inferred intent, right? That the merchant has to go in and has to search for something like small business funding, or blatantly merchant cash advance, or small business loan. They have to take some level of action that would lead the search engine to present them with an ad based on that search, right? And the targeting is relatively simplistic for, unless you get really, really advanced and you have a super high spend on your Google ads, and you've got a full-blown digital marketing team on staff, right? This is what's available to you. You can target by location, language, keywords, not much else, frankly. There's not many other things to do, leaving aside remarketing, retargeting. That stuff happens, but that's available on social as well, as you'll see. So that's all good, but think about, like, the vast majority of merchants out there have no idea what an MCA is. They don't know that there's alternative funding sources available to them other than their bank. That's still very true for most small business owners. And so what are they going to do? How are they going to find you if they don't even know about this thing called an MCA, and they don't know you exist, and they don't know what to search for? Chances are they might not find you. And so I jokingly say that Google ads are one step removed from having a marketing strategy of only calling your UCC list that you've purchased, right? The UCC list lets you know that somebody has a credit line out and you're calling it. So it's kind of the inverse, right? You know that in the past they've been interested in this, and you're going to call them to see if they're interested again. Well, in this case, you're calling them. They're looking, and hopefully that they find you. Well, social is a little bit better than that, in my opinion. Okay, social lets you define your audience, right? Who do you want to respond to your ads? And we can get really crazy granular, right? 35-year-old men who own a business in Austin, Texas, but not all of Austin, Texas, just these 3 zip codes. Oh, I also want them to be homeowners. I want them to be married and have children. I mean, that level of specificity, right? I want them to, have gone to University of Texas, Austin as well. Like, you can do that. You can find out, like, all that stuff I just described. You can get as granular as you want. So we've talked about in the past, your target markets, man, oh man, can you get specific. And that, to me, gives it an edge over every other channel, that I know I'm putting my ad in front of the right people. This little screenshot here, by the way, really, really great video. I'll find it on YouTube. It's a little sappy, by the way, all that we share. It's kind of basically like, hey, we all have more in common than we have differently, so it takes people from all different walks of life. But I should give some props to that screenshot there. But a really good video. It was a little viral video. You might have seen it a year or 2 ago. Good stuff. Okay, so targeting on social, right? I kind of mentioned it in the previous slide, but let's go over it again. So instead of it just being language, location, right, and a couple of other little tiny targeting things and keywords, right, based on what somebody's searching on, we get specific. Demographics, right? Age, gender, relationship status, education, workplace, job titles, a lot more, right? Their interests, what are they into? That's a commonly overlooked one, by the way. Like, what is a merchant into? What would they be reading? What are they searching? What are the things that are meaningful to them in their business or in their personal life? Because your job, remember, we've talked about this before, but your job as a sales professional is to generate a rapport, to connect with the prospect in a meaningful way so that it makes it easy for them to say yes, right? That's half of your battle, is get them to say yes, and then the second half of the battle is get them to be qualified and get them funded. But the first piece of your sales funnel is, I've got to connect with this person and get them moving, right? They've got to want to talk to me. Well, connecting based on interests is a really, really important thing. Behaviors are another thing that I find are great. So for instance, device usage and purchasing behaviors. So if you find out that people are buying certain items, right? If they have purchased a new credit card machine, right? You can target in on that type of stuff. And then of course, location, right? Location down to the zip code. That's how accurate most social networks are. And I highly recommend that you consider, especially if you do a lot of in-person and you're a solo ISO, proximity to your location. People who are easy, close by, right? Build your business face-to-face a little bit, right? So make it easy for people to know, like, oh yeah, well, this is the person who is in my city or in my general area. I should interact with them. Why targeting matters. So this one cracked me. So I put up this thing, just so you know, like it's hilarious how this happens. You know, like it's kind of like when you're driving your car and there's a noise, it's making a noise, it's driving you crazy, and you finally bring it into the mechanic and you say, hey, you know, I need this fixed, it's making this noise, and of course the mechanic drives it and it doesn't make the noise. It's kind of like that with when I was looking for this, something like this to fit this narrative, right? What is an ad that I have seen on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter that was hilariously mistargeted, right? That like it's obvious, like this person did not think about me when they were targeting this. And I couldn't find one for the longest time. And believe it or not, like 2 days ago, I finally found this one. So just, you know, little way of, you know, sharing something about me. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. I have an MBA. Why on earth would you show me an ad for a bachelor's degree program? Like, okay, I have kids, but you know, they're several years away from going to college, right? There's zero reason to put this ad in front of my face, and it's just a waste of pixels, right? And I'm certainly not going to have oh, you know, you should go to Strayer University type of thought process going through my head here. Now, on the one hand, people might say, well, what does it matter? I'm only doing pay per click. I'm not paying per impression. So if it's PPC, what do I care if I put ads in front of people who are never going to click on it? And I would argue, yeah, it is going to cost you money, right? Because not to be too, you know, there is a jerk factor. Let's use that phrase. You can never discount the jerk factor of people who will click on your ads just to drive up your cost per click. People do it, right? They do it on Google and they do it on social. And so weed out those who would click and be irrelevant to you as much as possible. So that may happen. But the other thing is, I think you end up having people drive up your cost per acquisition because they're wasting your time. Anybody who clicks through to you to the next piece of your marketing funnel and is unqualified potentially has the potential to slip through the cracks, get to you on the phone, and waste a whole bunch of your life and your business cycles, right? So don't let that happen, right? Make sure you're as targeted as possible. And the other thing is, lastly, it's the stats will mess you up. If you get an ad and you think, I've got this campaign nailed, this thing is beautiful, it's a surefire winner, and nothing happens, or a much lower click-through rate than you thought would happens, you may abandon it. Well, it was just bad targeting. That's it. You just didn't put it in front of the right people, right? It's the joke of, you know, you could go out to, you know, I always joke about, you could walk up to a million people in the world and ask them, hey, would you like to, you know, have dinner with me, right? Most people will say no, right? Most members of the opposite sex would say no, but guess what? Eventually, if you keep doing it, you will get yeses, right? It's the law of large numbers, right? Well, why don't you put the odds in your favor and do, you know, in this case, put your message in front of somebody you know is interested. Targeting essentials. So there is literally thousands of targeting options that you can have, and probably tens of thousands if we're including zip codes, right? Tens of thousands of potential variations and combinations of targeting you can do on social networks. And again, we're talking primarily here Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I'm not talking about Snapchat or some of the other more niche, well, niche to me, right, networks. But if you look at the must-haves, right, if we're thinking about describing who you, as a financial professional who's looking for merchants to click through and potentially get into your funnel, owner, right, job title, describing the person as a business owner, right, so you want to focus in, like, how does this person describe themselves? Are they an owner of a business? The industry, we've talked about that in our target marketing webinars. What industry are they in? Do they fit the narrative of who you say you serve best? Right? So whether it's auto dealers or salons or what have you, restaurateurs or whatever, what can you do to target based on industry? Location, as I mentioned before, I think is super duper important. It's always best to try to target based on location. There may be places in America that you just don't want to serve, right? There may be places that you serve better than others, right? So focus on language is also important. I think language is a must because if you don't speak Spanish, as an example, you don't want people responding who only speak Spanish, right? So make sure that you're presenting, your ad may be in English, but present to people who list English as their primary language, if that's an available filter that you have there. Should haves, company size. Most social networks will have the ability to go in and drill into company size based on employees or based on revenue number. That's important, right? If you have a history of serving relatively small businesses that have 20 or fewer employees, it might be much more complicated than you realize to reach out to the next size up company, right? The financing decisions may be handled by a CFO at that level versus just the owner, right? You might be getting into much more complicated territory there. And if you don't have the infrastructure in your business to service those types of people, you might be stepping into deeper waters than you can handle. But if you try to grow, hey, listen, go after it. Income level, very often you can find, like, does a person make $75,000, $100,000, $200,000 a year, right? Target that. Lines of credit. I was surprised to find that this was an option, by the way, and on Facebook of all places, that you can actually see lines of credit, like how many credit cards somebody has open, how many lines of credit does a person have open in their name. Now for you, if you're dealing with MCA, that's a really important variable, right? I mean, people who are at the end of their other credit options very often are prime candidates for an MCA, because otherwise they might just swipe a credit card to solve their needs. But if they have run out of those options, the runway is at an end, now they're much more in the consideration set for an MCA. Nice to haves. So we talked a little bit about these at the beginning. Consider targeting based on their interests and their other attributes, right? What Facebook pages do they like? I love that one. Do a little digging, right? So if you have served merchants, let's just say you over the course of the last year, you have done 50 deals. Look at those 50 deals, find the primary decision maker, and go do a little social media research on that decision maker. Go take a look at their Facebook page. Look at the other pages they like. Go look at their Twitter. Click down and see who do they follow, what brands do they follow, what other things are they doing, and look for commonalities. Now, this is going to take some work if we're dealing with 50 people, right? But it's an afternoon's worth of work. Go do some research and find out what do they have in common? What can I find about these people and learn, and then I can feed that into my filter of who do I present ads to, right? So really, really valuable stuff. That's kind of like a pro tip that I've used in the past with clients. Works wonders, right? Because now we're speaking the same language as them, but I'm also kind of finding a little bit of an edge as well that other vendors might not be doing, and my ads will show up where others won't. Okay, this is really important. So, and by the way, we're spending a lot of time on targeting for a very specific reason. Again, if you put an ad out there and it doesn't show to the right audience, you might as well not put an ad out there. It's that important. You got to have the audience nailed. It would be like if Grant and the team invited just a general audience to this webinar. Doesn't do Pearl Capital any good, right? They had to think of ISOs as their target market, brokers who do business with Pearl Capital as the target market, and those who maybe haven't done business with Pearl that they'd like to have doing business with Pearl, right? Get very specific. So that's why we're spending so much time here. One of the things that I'm a big fan of is capturing your site visitors, like once they come to your site. Now, the great thing, and very similar to Google, you've heard of remarketing. Chances are you've heard of it. If you haven't heard of remarketing or retargeting, words are used interchangeably. You've certainly experienced it, right? You go to a website, you click on the website, you read something, whatever. Next thing you know, you're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Google, and you're seeing, wait a minute, I was on Warby Parker. Why is Warby Parker now staring me in the face here on Facebook? Why am I seeing their ad everywhere I go across the internet? That's called remarketing, right? They drop something, it's called a pixel, right? They dropped a tiny bit of code on your computer, and now they're going to follow you everywhere, right? So most social networks call it a pixel. LinkedIn calls it an insight tag, but it's the same thing. It's just a little tiny piece of code. Your browser gets tagged in your browser. Now it gets associated with your Facebook account, your LinkedIn account, your Twitter account, whatever account it is, right? And so now when you go back to that social network, they're seeing you. Now what's really, really neat is it starts to, you can use it in a couple of different ways. One is you can use it to build your audience, right? So you can have a dynamic list on Facebook, as an example, that is generated by the pixel, so that anybody who comes to your website, clicks on your website, drops a pixel on them, and it adds them to a list. And then not only that, it will automatically, you can make it do a lookalike list. So it adds people who are lookalikes, right? So who looks like Mike Langford, who came here? Well, what do we know about Mike Langford? Mike Langford, is in the financial services industry, and he likes this, and he's married, he has kids, he's from Austin, blah, blah, blah. So it starts getting iterative. And I'll talk a little bit about lookalike audiences here in a couple of slides. But anyway, you can use it to track campaign conversions, which is really important. So if somebody clicks on your ad, goes to your website, you want some sort of feedback loop there, like who clicked, what did they do, right? Did they convert? Did they buy anything, right? So that you can gain some valuable insights about your site visitors and initiate remarketing campaigns, very similar to what we talked about. So if the option is available to you, and it will be, to associate a pixel with your campaign, do it. All right. Don't forget your existing list. This is actually, it's funny, I was going to include this anyways, but Grant made sure, he's like, Mike, can you make sure you cover like how to upload your list? And I said, absolutely, because if you remember, if you've seen the original, last year we did a social media, social sales for ISOs webinar. And one of the things I talked about was growing your network, growing your reach, right? Building your connections, because people often forget that these networks aren't, they're networks, they're for connecting with people. And too often I'll meet an ISO or a financial advisor or an agent or what have you, and they'll say, social marketing is not really working for me. I spent some time, but I'm not getting any results. And I go look, and they've got like 90 connections on LinkedIn and barely any followers or whatever. And I'm like, well, what the heck, dude? Like, you got to have a network. You've certainly met thousands of people over the course of your life. Why aren't they in social? Same thing here for your ads, right? If you have some sizable lists that you've been working with, that you're calling off of, then you happen to have the emails or whatever, and most of these social networks will allow you to upload based on phone number as well, okay? Upload, see what happens. Now, they're not all, so if you've got a list of 10,000 people, all 10,000 are not going to connect with an account, because some people don't use their work account with Facebook or what have you, but take advantage of it anyways. So I'm going to take you through a couple of different ways on the 3 major social networks for uploading your list. Really, really important stuff. So a couple of reasons why to use and my favorite is the top. And because I've talked to so many ISOs who have talked about the concept of email. And email is driving them crazy, because I buy this list and I can't use email marketing because I'll get blackballed for spam. It's a challenge that many people have. Well, a great way around that is upload that list into social, because guess what? You're not going to be spamming anybody. The social network is going to take care of putting the ad in front of the people. Little hidden ninja trick there, right? Right? So upload that stuff. So Facebook will deliver your ad for you, not going to be spam, right? LinkedIn will deliver your ad for you, not going to be spam. And at the end of the day, you don't necessarily care whether you have the person's email address at the beginning anyway, because they're just kind of like a suspect lead, a very cold lead, especially if you're working on a purchase list, right? So you don't necessarily care, right? What you want to do is get these people to warm lead territory. A couple of little pieces. List size does matter. You can upload a list of ISOs or whatever, of your prospects, into the social network. But the social networks do kind of rig the game a little bit. They don't want you to be so darn targeted where like you don't have to spend money. Right? So, and you think about a social network like Facebook, that has 2 billion people, or LinkedIn that has 500 million people on it. Those are very, very large networks. So what they're looking to do is have your list, your targeting for your ad to be in the thousands, so that there's, that you see success, right? So large numbers means some of them will click, but also so that you can't get so laser focused where like you convert, you spend only a tiny bit of money and you walk away. They want you to kind of have more time. They want you to be experienced. It's just the way that it is. It's the same with any other advertising, right? They usually have to spend more on advertising than you technically need to. Clean your list. This is really important, right? I see a lot of people get really enamored with having a big list, and that's awesome. But if you know that half your list is garbage, get rid of it, right? You don't need, it's wasting your time, it's wasting your brain power, it's clogging up your contact list. Get rid of the junk, right? If you know that it's absolute garbage, spend some time thinking about your target market before you start uploading people. So if you've made a decision based on the stuff that you've learned with these webinars that you're going to target, automotive related businesses in the Austin, Texas area, well then get everybody off the list that doesn't fit in that narrative, okay? 3 general categories that I always recommend, right? The target market itself, okay? Influencers over that target market, right? So who is on the list of who would be an influencer, right? So is it a specific type of attorney? Is it tow truck drivers who happen to service garages or whatever? Like, find out the influencers. And then lastly, your referral partners. Who are your referral partners that send you business or are likely to send you business? Get them on your list as well so they're seeing your ads. Okay, how to upload the list. So we're going to deal with Facebook first. I shied away from doing the automated, kind of live stream thing here because you never know if you're going to have troubles with it. So it's relatively simple. There's a URL at the top here, facebook.com/ads. Okay. There's also an app for advertising. But just go there, click on create an audience, okay, create a custom audience, and now you see here in the center the little window that I captured that. Can I get a copy? Yes, so Ernest asked, I just took a look on the side. Yes, you'll get a copy of the presentation, Ernest, and there'll be a recording of this as well. Doesn't mean you should leave, though. You should stay just in case you have other questions. Stay here. All right, so creating an audience, right? Choosing a customer file customer file at the top is what I recommend at the beginning here, right, to create your initial audience. It's going to help, and you can use this to generate other audiences as well. Now it's going to open up another window, and it'll say, do you have a file or a copy if you're using MailChimp, or would you like to try out this customer file with lifetime value option, which is a new feature that Facebook recently added. So walk through that process, relatively self-explanatory. You do have to do a little bit of tinkering here, right? There's going to be some experiments when you upload something and you're like, that doesn't look as good as I hoped it would be. It's okay, delete it and upload something different, okay? Mess around with it a little bit. It's not frightening, you're not going to break it. Okay, and you also, like I said, you don't have to worry about getting busted for spam. Like, you don't have to have your email provider going, what the heck are you doing uploading these lists? Stop it. No, you're tinkering around with your marketing audience. I mentioned this before, expanding your list with lookalikes. Highly recommend doing this with some caution. And my caution, I'll show you here in a second. But there's 2 different ways to do it on Facebook. The more aggressive new way, which is really, really fascinating to me, and they just rolled this out, so I'm looking forward to tinkering with it, is this value-based, right? So what are my most valuable customers, right? Lets you go in there and define the value of your customers. So in your case, deal size, frequency of deals, like how many deals. Like, you may want to advertise to customers who have done multiple deals with you, or merchants that have done multiple deals with you. Or if you've got a raw list, like a UCC list, and you're able to see like how much the deal size that they've done in the past is, you may want to segment based on value, okay, or deal type. Right? So you may want to tinker around with that type of stuff. Could really work well for you, but it typically works best when the list is bigger, right? So if you only have a few data points, if you're dealing with a list of, let's just say 500, might be a struggle. But if you've got a list of, let's just say 5,000, probably a little bit better. But list size can be crazy. So I uploaded a list of, just to demonstrate here, of attendees, of ISOs who have attended these webinars for Facebook. And there's about 500 or so. And it ended up with about almost 400 of them, of the emails that were used, right, were on Facebook. So it's great. So I've got a list here, my initial list of 400 ISOs. Now that list is not big enough to do targeting for ads on Facebook. It'll say, hey, listen, you need a bigger list. You're too specific. You need to expand it. You need to add some other attributes. So add a lookalike. Well, when I tinkered around with a lookalike, I got a problem here, right? My problem is that list is huge. The lookalike audience is massive, right? It gets me to 2.3 million people if I'm using a 1% lookalike accuracy, right? So this way, it's just good now. Like, these people are almost exactly like you guys on the call right there. That's a problem because there's no way there's 2.3 million ISOs. I need to get that down to like something that looks like the actual size of the ISO community, right? So you got to do a little tinkering there. So I would go back in and I would say, okay, what else can I do? Can I get more accurate to just the New York City area? And I would go back to the communities where I knew you guys were. I would do some other tinkering on the advertising thing. I might even go in like company names and all that type of stuff to try to figure out some other way of targeting that list. Okay, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a little more, LinkedIn needs to get their advertising bleep together. Let's just put it that way. Not as easy to use as Facebook. Facebook is by far the easiest. Twitter's not bad either, but Facebook's the easiest. And oh, by the way, I'm going to go back real quick. Real quick. Notice up here in the left-hand corner, top left-hand corner, it is Facebook and Instagram. Facebook owns Instagram. So keep that in mind that you can publish your ad, your campaign, and have it show up on Instagram in addition to Facebook. And many people, especially particularly on the younger side, spend way more time on Instagram than they're spending on Facebook. So that's kind of like a double bonus, I think. Okay, LinkedIn. LinkedIn, similar thing, matched audience, right? So you go into business.linkedin.com/marketing solutions ads, blah, blah, blah. Tinker around, you'll see it. It's right up there in the right-hand corner. When you go to the main site, click a drop down, and you go to advertise. You'll have to set up an account to get started. Really super easy to set it up. Takes like 2 seconds. Now you dive in, same process, right? You got to upload a file, doing your matched audiences here. There's a couple of different ways to do it. Matched audience, or you can do demographics and so forth. Just upload your list. You're going to get the same similar results. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you're more likely to see people with their work email addresses on LinkedIn than you will over on Facebook, right? More people are going to just use that as their primary connection mechanism here, okay? On Twitter, there's no way you can actually get the URL, the full URL, so I'll just give you the general area to go to. Do ads.twitter.com. And then similarly, you're going to be there once you set up an account. I think you have to set your account up first. Click audience manager down from tools. Click create a new audience, and then upload. You can see it right here. Upload your own list and choose that list email address. Now here's what's really neat. Twitter, because of the way it was established, was originally a text messaging service, right? That's why you have 140 characters, right? They needed to go over the old SMS text messaging thing with the old flip phones. So you can load up lists based on phone numbers. You can also load up lists based on Twitter usernames. This is actually a really nice little advance here, which means you could go check out lists of Twitter users that are in your target market and upload them here and target based on that. Okay, real super easy. Okay, now let's dive into kind of creating some of your advertising copy and campaign stuff. Well, what should you have there? Well, the first thing I would say is know your merchants. Like, know who you're talking to, right? Because generic ads create generic results. So one of the things that I'm a huge fan of, and this gets into your advertising copy, use copy that resonates with your audience. It is okay to use slang. It is okay to use industry acronyms, right? Things that, like, as an example, you're being referred, your clients are referred to as merchants, right? A lot in the industry. Nobody else calls them merchants, really, right? But that's your thing, right? So if I was advertising to you, I'd use merchants all the time. Somebody else might I call my clients clients. Some people call them diners, guests, patrons, right? So know who you're talking to, right? Things like, are they urban, suburban, rural audience? There are certain values or certain imagery that might be much more effective using there. I use examples like, do you say y'all or you guys? Or you all? Like that actually is, you can blow people off by using y'all up in New England. If you're using y'all when you're talking to a bunch of New Englanders, particularly in Boston, they're not going to look too favorably on your marketing copy. But if you use you guys, right, or you, or something like that. But if you're talking to somebody here in Houston or Dallas, whatever, you can use y'all right in your Facebook ad. It works, okay? So know your audience, know what they like, know what how they talk. It's okay to use slang. If you're marketing to hip hop producers, right, you can use hip hop lingo. It works. Okay. Understand why they're on social. This is particularly important for you when you're marketing to a merchant. The language you use and the topics you use, the solutions you're selling, it's not just money. You're not just selling access to capital. You're selling access to capital because that capital needs to be used to solve a problem for the merchant. So if they're on the social network because they need customer service is an issue, sales is an issue, recruiting is an issue, other things that they're doing on social, notice their patterns, right? Create marketing copy or things that you share out there that you're going to sponsor and promote that are promoting solutions to their problems. And you can put the angle of, hey, capital helps you solve that problem. Okay. Photos and video. So this is I mean, I can't, by the way, backing up just real quick. So one thing we're not covering specific, use this message, cut and paste this ad and it'll work for you. The reason why we're not doing that is your business is different, your target market is different. What I'm hoping that you get from this is some fundamental principles that you're going to use in your marketing. If you have specific things that you're sending me, if you want to share a piece of copy and say, what do you think of this? I'm happy to look at it and make some quick suggestions based on that. But we're going to be copying much more strategic ideas versus very specific tactical and this is the actual image you should use or the actual wording you should use. Okay, photos and video. Yes, use them, right? Images activate our brains. Something about it. We are visual people. There's a reason why we're one of the few mammals that see in color, right? We have full color spectrum that we can see. Take advantage of that. The old images, a picture says 1,000 words is truer than people realize, right? A lot of times people remember the image more than they remember the actual marketing message, right? We remember the jingle or the character from the commercial or whatever much more than we remember the specific message and so forth. So think about those types of things. The one thing that I would urge you to do is think about how the merchants that you're targeting think of themselves, right? I've got 3 different versions here of somebody doing work, right? Physical labor, right? Now they're doing different jobs in different types of places. You've got a welder, and look at a construction worker here, and then you've got a guy who's rehabbing cars, right? But how did your merchant see himself? What do they do? Spend some time looking for images that are going to resonate with that person. So if you're trying to go out there to one of these guys and you're showing somebody in your picture that has a suit and tie on and, hey, we can find you money, here's the cash you need for your small business, that guy doesn't see himself as a suit and tie dude, right? No way. So find people who look or at least represent the audience, right? So that you match the message that's in their head, right? And then your text should kind of match similarly, right? Don't use overly formal language if you're showing somebody using a blowtorch, right? Doing some arc welding there. This was one of my favorite ones, and I hope Vinny is paying attention at Pearl Capital. So Vinny at Pearl he's a graphical wizard in my opinion. He does a fantastic job. A lot of little videos you see, all this graphics you see here on the right-hand side, for these webinars and other stuff you see on social. That is Vinny's work. He does an amazing job. He's the one who created all these creative elements. He's putting this together. So awesome stuff. One of the things that's great about Vinny's work and the approach that Pearl has taken here is it's consistent. Like I can recognize a Pearl ad, Pearl campaign, or a piece of content that Pearl has shared from across the room. Like if I couldn't actually read the words, I'd probably know, like, okay, that color scheme and just the general style of that image, I know that Vinny's behind that, right? I know that that's a Pearl piece of copy. That's the ideal thing, and it doesn't have to be graphically, you don't have to hire somebody like Vinny to do this, but you should have a style. There should be something that makes people recognize you, that when they see you in the stream, whether they're a follower or not, or they're just somebody who's seeing the ad, over time they should get to the point where they kind of know it's you, right? That if they feel comfortable. It's the reason why, why do you see Coca-Cola ads over and over and over and over again? You can remember, the McDonald's Big Mac song, right? The 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions with a sesame seed bun, right? You remember that because you've heard it tens of thousands of times over the course of your life. You've seen certain things, right? So repetition matters, but pick something that you're going to do that is recognizable. My little plea here is, for the love of all things holy, stop the coffee shop owner guy. Very few small businesses own a coffee shop, and I don't know why when you Google small business owner, image for a small business owner, you go to any stock photo site, they think everybody owns a coffee shop for some reason. It's just crazy. But I don't know. I don't know who resonates with that necessarily. I guess coffee shop owners do. But I suspect that most of your merchants that you deal with do not have some gorgeous San Francisco-based or Soho-based coffee shop that they work in every day. That's super glam, right? It's probably a lot more gritty than that. And so that picture doesn't resonate. As I mentioned here, stock photos are great. There's nothing wrong with stock photos. Find high quality ones that look like they were, they don't look overly hacky, but find ones that pop, and that one are going to resonate with your audience, like I said on the slide before. A couple of resources here. Unsplash, free stock photos. So free is great, especially if you have very small budgets. The picture qualities are amazing. It's not like an iStock or Getty Images, though, so that you don't find every picture of every conceivable situation in the world. You do have to get a little creative, but I love their stuff, and that's where I go to get a lot of the stuff that I use if we're using stock photo. Canva is a website that is, if you've ever tried to use Photoshop, it's brutally difficult. You kind of feel like you need to be a NASA scientist to learn how to use it. Canva has much easier, right? You have to know graphical wizardry to be able to use it. So you can use something like Canva. It's got there's a lot of stock images you can use, a lot of stock graphics that you can use and change the wording and so forth. So check that out. Okay, take advantage of HD screens. You may have heard me say this, but I say it every time I give a marketing presentation. The average human being in America now almost always has a full HD screen on their person at all times. That's what your smartphone is. It's a full HD gorgeous screen that has the ability to consume and broadcast photos and video in great, stunning detail. Take advantage of that. Don't let that pass your merchants by, right? Make sure and they like it, by the way. People spend a lot of time watching video on their phones, and they will oftentimes look at a video much more than they will just look at a print or just an ad with a photo in it. So take advantage of it, right? It's really simple. You do not have to go out and hire a production company, number one. Get that out of your head. Some of the most successful people, like my friend Gary Vaynerchuk here on the right, I met Gary 8 years ago when he was just getting his start with his first video show, Wine Library TV, which he basically tasted wine and told people what he thought about it. And that eventually got him to be kind of internet famous, and he got on some TV shows like Conan O'Brien and so forth, and then now he's kind of real world famous to certain audiences, and he owns a big marketing agency. But one of the things he does a lot of is that he does a lot of just video on his phone. He'll just pull it out and video a thought that he has and shares it, right? And then of course now he's got a big enough budget where he has people who will add little graphics to it. But any of you who have a smartphone, you've got a production studio in your hand. Pull it out, use it, right? Share a little bit of wisdom, thing you learned today, and share that with your audience, and then click the promote button on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. Promote that video to make sure people see it. Okay, you can develop a real relationship like that with your merchant audience, your target market there. If you're looking to do kind of more stylistic stuff, to turn either a series of photos or slides into video or what have you, there's a great resource called RenderFX, very similar to Canva for images, but this is for videos. And they've got a bunch of templates. They've got, like I said, you can upload a bunch of pictures, and they'll turn those, and then you can type in your words that you want to go with those pictures, your captions, and then they will turn that into a video that's ready for Facebook or ready for Twitter or Instagram, and have the music in the background and everything that goes with it. This pro tip here I have in the middle between the two screenshots of add captions to your video. That's kind of next level stuff, but consider doing it. Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, when the video starts playing, they're automatically muted. And so sometimes people see the video playing on their screen, but they'll see the words, like, oh, wait a minute, that looked interesting, and they click into it, and then they'll watch the video with the caption. So if you have the time and the budget to do it, consider putting captions in your video. Okay, playing Moneyball, kind of rounding, going for home here. Look for advantages over in overlooked places. So before we get into hashtags here, I want you to think about this concept. Most of your competitors have really big budgets. So, if you're talking about, Pearl has much bigger budget than you, much deeper pockets than you, right? But they're not direct, right? So they're going to you. But some of the other players like On Deck and the rest, they've just got a pantload of money, right? And they're spending in big ways, and they can afford to miss their target market, right? They can be a little more broad and so forth. You need to be much more specific and much more, I'm not going to say guerrilla marketing, but don't waste money, right? Let's try small things. Let's be a little more strategic in our spend, right? I don't want you to go out there and go, I'm convinced. I went to that webinar. Mike's right. I need to be on social, and I'm going to start spending $10,000 a month on social media ads. If you have that budget, think about it, and that's awesome. Don't spend all the $10,000 at once. Start with a couple of hundred. If you're really small, you're individual ISO, you can start with $20 a day here and there just to get the ball rolling and see what happens. Okay. So here we go. Let's dive in. Here's a little way to play Moneyball. Use common hashtags. So, we had a hashtag for this webinar, and it's just for if people want to talk about this, they know that we're all talking about the same thing. But when we're marketing, we're putting advertising out into the world, don't try to invent your own hashtag. Unless you're already famous, unless you're already kind of a player and you've got a huge audience, then you can start introducing your own hashtags and see if you can get something trending. I mean, the purpose of a hashtag is so that people can search for something and find it. That's why a hashtag was invented on Twitter, because 140 characters, right? How do I find what I'm looking for? Let's create these things called hashtags, okay? When you click on a hashtag now on Twitter, it'll bring up all the other tweets that have that hashtag in it, right? So think about the hashtags that are being used by your target market and what they're being used for, right? You can do a little research on that type of stuff, but the most important thing is go with the trend. Find out what they're using it for. If people are talking about small business, right? Look, I've got a link here to a website called #hashtagify.me, right? And clicking on the one that says small business, and you'll see all the tweets related that use that hashtag small business. You'll see all the ones that have the hashtag small biz, which ones are used more, all sorts of word clouds around it. So take a look at that type of stuff. It's a great trick to make it put you in the driver's seat. You get a little more edge over your competitors. Use Clout.com. Clout is mocked. Now it was acquired for like $100 million, but it was this thing where basically it measures your social influence on social media, and it's got its flaws. And one is if you don't tweet a lot, you have low clout, even though you may be famous or whatever. It takes into account basically all your activity on social media and how many people interact with it and so forth. But one little hidden gem that I like there is that you can research somebody in your target market and look at their areas of influence, and then you can see who else they're connected with and who influences them, right? And what other topics are they looking at? And you can use it as a resource to find things like hashtags. What are they tweeting about? Instead of trying to dig around on the internet, it's just kind of a nice little click here, go plug some stuff in and see what comes up. Don't fight fire with sticks. So this kind of goes back to what I said before. The big dogs have big budgets. You do not. So focus on building a core audience and promote to a well-defined market. So very much in the early part of this webinar, we were talking about define your audience, upload your audience from your existing list. Get really specific there so you don't have to waste money and effort, okay? And then I would say use your personality and your unique style to stand out. Like I said, I talked about 50 ISOs over the course of the last month, and you all have different styles. Some of you are mellow and chill. Some of you are bombastic and out there, or just kind of selling it. Some of you are very humble and easy to relate to. Some of you are taking a much more just energetic, high I wouldn't say high pressure, but high energy sales type tactic. Whereas other people take a much more of a learning, hold your hand approach. None of those are wrong. They're you, right? Be you in your style. Use your personality to stand out in videos, in the way that you write your copy, in the images that you choose, right? There's 330 million people in America. A good chunk of them are small business owners, right? And then there's going to be a new batch of small business owners coming over and over and over again. There's going to be the population is moving. You will find your X amount of thousands of people to be in your audience, and of those, a few hundred of them who become your merchant clients, right? So be you, find the ones that connect with you. Use that to your advantage, because bigger brands don't use their personality, right? They have to be a little more watered down. Promote interesting content. So this is one of the things that I get a lot. Mike, what do I share? What do I put out there? I don't know what to do. Well, find out what's working, right? Don't reinvent it. Don't try to create what works, right? Go research. So I go onto this website called buzzsumo.com. Check it out. They have a free account you can use. And type in something like merchant cash advance and see what the topics are coming up. So you see here, we got one by Capital Flow, one by a couple of them by Capital Flow. They're on a blog there, one on CNN, whatever. And you can see like how many Facebook engagements they have, how many Twitter shares they have, and so forth. You can go in and dive in like, okay, well, this one's the most popular article mentioning that topic. Let me go check it out. Now you can either choose to reshare that on your social network and promote that share, or you can write something a little interesting about it, put it on your website, and then re-promote it. But you know that they're interested. You know that people found it interesting somehow, okay? Don't have to reinvent the wheel. Share what's already interesting to your audience. Okay, home stretch here, how to qualify your leads. And this one is really important to me because you spend a lot of time defining your audience. You spend time creating ads and promoting it, and you spend some money there. What happens now? How do we know that they're qualified? Because there's nothing worse than bringing unqualified leads into the funnel and wasting your time. We've all done that, right? And it drives you crazy. It's like, why did I bother talking to that person? Or how did I not get that person into my funnel further? Like they clicked, they visited, and then nothing happened, right? So the first thing is you need to think about marketing as a series of filters, right? A lot of people think of it as a funnel, and it is a funnel, but I think of it differently. I think of it as filters. We want to filter out the people who don't qualify. I don't want to talk to those people. I don't even want them filling out a form if I can help it, right? So first of all, when they come to my landing page, if there's going to be a landing page for your campaign, it should describe the target market. In other words, just describe who they are, who you serve, what do you have available to them, what does that even mean, right? And really be specific on who's your minimum servable merchant. So I've heard many ISOs talking about how they talk to people and then they find out they can't get them funded because they're not qualified. Well, think about the reasons why they're unqualified and be specific about, like, you have to be better than this in order for us to, if you have this, we can't help you, or whatever, or this is who we help, okay? And then have a CTA, call to action, for the next step. The recommended simple call to actions. One is schedule a call, right? Just simple, right? Would you like to schedule a call with me? Click here. And then bring them to, this is a website here called acuityscheduling.com, right? It's a scheduling app for your calendar. It'll look at your calendar. You can block off times that you're not available, so you don't get it, and then somebody has to select a time for you to call them. So it's a time that works for them, so you're not wasting cold calls. You're not wasting time emailing back and forth trying to figure out what's a good time for you. I'm available on this time. Just nope. They click, they schedule. They've already told you, I'm interested enough in you that I've scheduled a call. Here's my phone number or my email address. Call me on Tuesday at 1, okay? The second is fill out this form. Use a form builder and ask for specific information, action-based questions, right? Your goal, again, is to disqualify those people before they waste your time. Acuity, also really cool solution to have there. Not only do they have a thing where you can schedule, but they have a form builder that you can use. So if you don't even have a website for your business, or your website is pretty static, you can embed the Acuity calendar and form on your website to use it that way. So really, really cool stuff. Okay, for the next month, and then we'll have Q&A. Create your target audiences on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We've talked a little bit about target market before, as I mentioned, but spend 5 minutes and do this. Get started. Put some audiences together. Get a feel for how big they are. Ask yourself the questions about, like, what else could I know about this person that would help me target them, right? Experiment, because they'll tell you how big the audience is, by the way. When you start tinkering around, you'll be like, oh, well, that's 10,000 people. Oh, that's 5,000 people, or whatever. Figure out how big your audience is. How many merchants are out there that you could serve that fits your target market? Play around with that. Create your landing page or use Acuity scheduling, right? There's a whole bunch of other services out there, but those are pretty easy to do. And then lastly, experiment with a small dollar amount. I'm a big fan of starting this way. Even if you have a big budget, even if you told me your budget was $60,000 a month on campaign spending, I would spend $20 a day at first, tinkering. seeing what works. And then I would want to pour some gas on the stuff that works, right? Because once stuff starts converting and starts funding, you can pour a lot more money on it, but you can also waste a ton of money on stuff that doesn't work. So experiment there. Okay, make sense? All right, let's do this. Questions. So we've already answered Ernest's question. Yes, you can get a copy of this, Ernest. He said he was staying, by the way, which was awesome. Any other questions from people? I give you guys usually, I usually stick around for another 10 or 15 minutes after if we have questions. So I'm fine with the questions rolling in. Question I have for people that are still on the call: have you done Facebook ads or Twitter ads? Right? Have you done anything yet? Have you experimented? Good question came in. Okay. So I've got Barry mentioned that he's done with very little conversion success. So what was the general campaign? Was it just, you know, need money type of need funding for your business? Click here. Now, one of the things that I mentioned, I think earlier on, and I'm just going to, as people think about their questions, is it's okay to use your social ads to get people to come to your site to consume content, right? To read a blog post, to watch a longer video, right? To read some analysis you've recently done. And you can repackage somebody else's content too, by the way. If you read an interesting article that is relevant for your audience. So if you serve, I'll use my automotive industry people, right? So if you got people who own auto shops and supply stores and so forth, detailing shops and car washes, it's okay to find, if somebody's written another article, to take that, kind of summarize it in a 200-word, you know, quick little summary. This is interesting. Post it on your website with a link back to the original post, and then advertise your post, right? Your job is to try to get people in the door. Okay, so Barry mentions he took them to a landing page to explain your offer, but it was designed with the desire of needing money. Okay, so that one of the interesting things about that is, so you've got a very strong conversion rate, right? I think the one of the things is we want to try to filter people out. Like, so we want to get more specific on why they might need money, right? For whether it's for new equipment, whether it's for hiring, whatever. We want to make sure that we're being very specific. We want to be specific about the audience itself too, so we can have it in their language. And then when they get there, we want to find a way to ask some questions and make it less stressful, right? And what I mean by that is, think about the concept. Like, we're on a call right now, we're on a webinar, and I'm very unthreatening, right? Because I can't see you, you can't see me, you can hear me, I can't even hear you. There's no risk really to you to attend this. So one of my recommendations would be, what's the next level of no risk you can give somebody when they come to your website, right? What can they do? What can they consume? Can they interact with in a way that lets them get more comfortable with the concept? Because if they clicked on an ad that said, you need more money, right? You need capital somehow, and they landed on your site, there were the jerk clickers who clicked for no reason, but if they came there and spent any time, they were interested in it. Okay, so what's the next level of moving down the funnel? Right? Is it an immediate, hey, apply now? Or is there something in between, click to come to my website and apply now? Should there be another step in there? Should there be another qualification step in there? Should there be a scheduling of a call or something of that nature that's less, it's not going to hurt as much, right? Okay, so we've got one from Lenny here. Google recently killed paid search results for merchant cash advance, etc. Any idea on how ISOs and lenders can get around that? I see it still works on Bing. So yeah, you got to get creative. That's a great question, Lenny. And I noticed that too, by the way. I tried doing some searches for merchant cash advance, and I didn't see any paid ads there. So you're dealing with just you got to either rank organically, or you're going to have to find another solution. It is what you can start with synonyms, right? You can start trying to market for, small business funding, emergency funding for your business. So I would spend some time if you're talking about paid ads that are based on keywords. Think about what somebody might search for beyond that. You want to find a way. If you want to rank organically for merchant cash advance, that'll be challenging, right? Because big players like a Fundera or whoever have invested just lots and lots of money on optimizing their site for those types of terms. But you can get around it a little bit by, if you could drive traffic to a landing page somewhere on your site for merchant cash advance, and you drive a lot of paid traffic from another source, whether it be Bing, whether it be social, Google records site traffic. I mean, Google's all about trust, right? It is, do I trust this website to have the information that people are looking for? Is basically what it is, right? You could do things like backlinks, right? You could focus on getting other high-quality links into your website. Those are kind of my general ideas of getting around that, but social media is another way, right? Advertise on social media. The same human beings who are using Google are using social. They are, right? They're just using it differently. And so you have to approach advertising to them slightly differently. Okay, other question. That was a good question, Lenny. You're welcome, sir. I'll stick around for a few more minutes. I see we still have a relatively full room here, so I assume some people have taken some notes and stuff. I'm happy to continue answering questions. If there's, for some reason, as I mentioned before, if you have questions where you're a little uncomfortable asking in front of the audience, you can absolutely email me, Mike at finservMarketing, right here on this landing page. So if you ever have questions, please do email me. Or if you have questions about Pearl specific, their products or how they do business or anything like that, reach out to Grant at Pearl Capital. It's Grant at Pearl Cash. Ooh, Grant, call this number. Grant's going to get a lot of emails, and I'm going to get a lot of hating emails from Grant because of that one. I'm pretty sure. He knows I love him. All right, other questions. I'll give you like one thing that I didn't cover in the presentation here is when you're on Facebook, you're going to see a lot of ad types that you can experiment with. One that I have not seen work well, they have one that's like a what do you call it? You can swipe the pictures right and left on the ad. I can't remember exactly what the ad type is called. Don't use that. I haven't seen it work well. I also haven't seen their on network conversion ad types, like, so, lead form stuff. I've tinkered around with that stuff. It doesn't seem to be working very well for whatever reason. So I don't know if it's because people are not yet comfortable with the notion of on Facebook filling out a lead form to convert. You'd think they would be because they're spending so much time there, but for whatever reason, I haven't seen it. And Twitter is experimenting with those as well. I just haven't seen people using it that much yet. And maybe it's working more for consumer products than it is. I mean, again, you got to know the notion of your product, right? Your product being a financing solution for a business. It's got to be treated that way, a little more serious, a little more, people are a little more nervous. They probably want to make sure they're dealing with a secure website and so forth. And that's another reason why I say for an independent ISO, you may, again, want to bring somebody to a landing page where it's take the next low risk step in the marketing process. Not, hey, you're here, go to the sales step, right? And start entering information about your business. It might just be schedule a call or whatever, or have us send you some information privately via email, which is the next logical step. And it's non-threatening, no risk. They don't feel like they're doing anything scary on your website, especially if it's a website they've never heard of before because you're XYZ funding partners, right? So that's kind of like my suggestion there. Okay, I'm going to give you one more minute here. If I don't see any more questions, we'll shut it down, and then we will resort to the email Q&A. All right, well, that wraps it up. I want to thank you all very much. It's been a privilege to share some time with you today. Again, if you ever have any questions, at Mike Langford on every social network pretty much, and Mike at finservMarketing on via email. Really enjoyed the time today. If you have any questions, get at me or get at Grant. This would be awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Good luck. Oh, wait a minute. I just got a video. Barry, if you want to stay online, everybody else, if they want. Barry asked me, what kind of videos would you suggest using? I think two, right? One is an informative video, right? And that's why I get into your target market a little more, right? What are they struggling with? What are some things you know about? You can also talk about options, right? Why not? Why wouldn't you promote a video that talks about the options of funding, right? Hey, real quick, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of these types of funding solutions. You have SBA, you have whatever, credit card financing, you have blah blah blah. Just kind of talk about them. We've dealt with a lot, and here's what we found. Most small business owners eventually will come against a cash flow crunch or whatever. Come up with some of those topics that you can share with them. Whatever fits your personality, what fits your target market's needs, right? Is what I suggest. I like the videos that are quick. If you don't have a good video voice or you're not comfortable being on camera, you can create some just real quick ones. You ever see the videos that look like a slide deck? Like it's a picture and then some words go over it. There's some background music, and it's really quick. If you're using social networks, try to start out with ones that are like 30 to 60 seconds long, right, initially, because people are kind of snacking there. It's okay to have a link at the end to see the full video. Click here and come to my website, right, and watch the full video. That's always helpful and encouraged. But without knowing a little bit more, that's kind of just my high-level suggestions. Make sense? Cool. All right. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, everyone else. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you very much. Looking forward to hearing how things are going for you.